Wind, water, and fire. More than 100 volcanoes bear witness to the epic clash of the elements that has sculpted caves, carved tunnels, and spread lava fields and dunes across the starkly barren landscape of Lanzarote. The easternmost of the Canary Islands is an inhospitable yet rich volcanic oasis where the lava and sea have painted a myriad of colors from Mother Nature's broad palette. A white volcano on Lanzarote dominates the little church of Mancha Blanca, protective yet menacing at the same time, representative of man's fight to survive nature's wrath on Lanzarote. More than 100 volcanoes cover the island, which has been devastated by lava flows time and time again. Its inhabitants have turned this mortal threat into an amazing resource. They live among volcanoes and have found ways of profiting from them.
The truth is that the volcanic eruptions on the island of Lanzarote that lasted 6 years, the last of which was in 1730-ish, that was supposed to be a catastrophe, and the reason for the emigration of the small population that lived here actually, in the end, turned out to be an enormous opportunity.
The cultivation of the vine in Lanzarote is unique in the world.
It's very real, that feeling, that good feeling that when you're feeling down, you can go to the top of a mountain that is a volcano and you can reset your mind and get back in touch with yourself and in harmony with nature and the environment.
The stark beauty of Lanzarote is stunning in its diversity. White sandy dunes beneath the La Corona volcano, a black lava lake below the Timanfaya National Park, crimson volcanic rock that turns to purple when the sun begins to dip toward the horizon. In the northwest, the half-submerged volcanic cone of El Golfo has been eroded by the sea over time, leaving behind only the red and russet-striated wall of the crater. At its foot is Lago Verde, a half-moon-shaped electric green lagoon filled with volcanic minerals and unique microorganisms. A volcanic black beach separates the green lagoon from the blue waters of the Atlantic Ocean, where fishermen's boats have been hauled up. Nearby, the aquamarine waters of Los Hervideros roil angrily where hot lava exploded as it hit the sea, forming a labyrinth of caves and tunnels that cause the water to froth along the coastline. Lanzarote lies just 125 kilometers from the Saharan coast of Africa, but it is under Spanish jurisdiction. It is the most easterly of the Canary Islands, all volcanic, but each one different from the rest, not unlike the landscapes of Lanzarote itself, which change strikingly from 1 kilometer to the next. The Canaries rise out of the sea along the fault line, releasing hot gases and rock under pressure from the lithosphere. Millions of years of eruptions have created the Canaries, and they continue today. In 2012, the island of El Hierro began an underwater eruption, and even the docile-looking volcanoes of Lanzarote are still alive.
The mountains of fire,
Timanfaya, the Jameo del Agua, the Cueva de los Verdes, Mirador de Rio, all laid out with masterly design representing man's symbiotic interaction with nature created by volcanism, They receive more than 2.5 million visitors every year.
The Timanfaya National Park is the heart of the island's volcanic life. Here the land is red and black, and rare plants live huddled under the jagged volcanic rocks. The blazing African sun and constant wind make this place particularly inhospitable. However, the islanders have turned this desolate land into a tourist destination. Visitors can enjoy beaches, camel rides and surfing, as well as popular volcano tours, where artificial geysers reveal the hidden heat of the magma below. Park wardens pour water into the steel tubes driven deep into the mountain to provoke a steam fountain for the enthusiastic visitors. The volcano cooks chicken and fish for the avant-garde restaurant designed by Lanzarote's architect and activist César Manrique. He battled with local businesses to protect the island from mass tourism and win it the prestigious UNESCO recognition as a unique biosphere.
Bueno, la declaración de Lanzarote como reserva de la biosfera que data.
The declaration of Lanzarote as a biosphere reserve dates back to 1993, and it is a title, a definition that UNESCO gives to areas of the planet that have shown respect of the environment, producing sustainable growth. And in this case, the population, this part of humanity, has developed economic activities respecting nature and the environment.
Humana, el desarrollo de actividades económicas desde el respeto hacia la naturaleza y el medio ambiente, ¿no?
The UNESCO recognition places limits on building. No houses are more than 2 stories tall. They have all kept their white appearance, and development has been authorized in only 3 areas of the island. The inhabitants are grateful for the quality of life that has been maintained. José de la Rosa and Marco Imbernon are adventurous young Lanzarotans who would never live anywhere else.
César
Manrique was the first on this island to understand its essence and keep it all under control.
Check, for example, as you can see,
Respect.
the houses
Are all white.
white and the doors and windows blue, so that there isn't a
Explosion of color.
color.
So the colors are uniform. So you can find white houses, and that's kind of what the biosphere is about. Although it's regulated, that doesn't mean that it's fully kept up, because people work. And all over the island, the vortex of consumerism and the need to keep growing sometimes means that they forget to respect the environment.
Queriendo crecer y crecer y se olvidan de respetar el entorno.
Bueno, quizás en sus orígenes fue
Yes, at the beginning, the institution was seen more as a threat than an advantage by the population. But time has proved that people who many years ago aimed at this recognition were right. And it has proved since to be an advantage because we have seen over a long time the basic source of wealth for Lanzarote is tourism. And it has become an element of promotion because visitors value how the sustainable development is put into practice.
The stark beauty of the island attracts millions of tourists every year, who come not only for the pristine beaches, but also for adventure sports of every kind. An increasing number come to enjoy some of the least expected aspects of Lanzarote, the island of 100 volcanoes. The port of Arrecife is the capital of the island of Lanzarote. It is the seat of the island government, the Cabildo, where the president, Pedro Sanginés Gutiérrez, runs the island's affairs.
Lanzarote tiene 150,000 habitantes junto a la Graciosa.
There are 150,000 inhabitants, including the little island of La Graciosa, which is a small island to the north belonging to the Chinijo archipelago. And let's not forget that 50% of the active population lives directly off tourism, and we are putting in place initiatives that try to recover or at least stop the disappearance of primary sectors precisely because they help configure the agrarian landscape of the island, and fishing that was very important in the past.
Arrecife is a small town with shops and hotels for tourists, all maintaining the overall urbanistic approach required to fall in line with the biosphere definition. The seafront and tidal port are perfect places to meet friends. Jose and Marco live for the sea. In fact, their heart is on the other side of the island, at the Famara Beach, a world-class surfing site.
Surfeando en las bajas que han formado los volcanes.
Surfing is along the shores formed by volcanoes thousands of years ago, many years ago. The shape of the waves is created by nothing more than the lava flows that extended into the ocean in a triangular shape thousands of years ago and create world category waves that we have here on Lanzarote, such as at La Santa, that are highly regarded at an international level.
Jose is a bodyboarder, while Marco big wave surfs and free dives. There are waves of two levels, waves to learn on and waves that are potentially more professional. And my friend Marco is specialized in that. And he can better tell you about the big waves here.
Basically, it's what I've said. The island has a whole range of waves that brings tourism here.
Images from Jose's website show the best waves on the island, an unexpected attraction for a place known instead for its sedate beach tourism. A youthful community of surfers and divers gather in Caleta de Famara to talk surf. Here the wind blows strong every day, and the clouds run low over the cliffs beyond the bay. On the 2-kilometer-long beach below, surfers stretch and prepare for an afternoon out on the waves.
Somos como una familia, ¿no? Lanzarote es muy pequeña y al final.
It's like a family. Lanzarote is very small, and the number of people who really surf constantly are like a family. So that in the end, we all know each other because we have this very strong fixation, and we do it nearly every day, so we become very close in the water in search of adventure, going to the islands like La Graciosa. Always traveling around in the water, looking for new places, trying to find the best available.
Y realmente sacándole el máximo partido al entorno, ¿no? a todo lo que nos rodea.
Lanzarote is known for its world-class waves. Bodyboarders and surfers paddle out daily, hoping to catch the roller that will give them the perfect ride. It is the special mix of Atlantic waves and winds hitting the volcanic outcrops that makes the surfing here so special.
Las ondas las crean las borrascas, ¿no? Las influencias, las bajas presiones en el Atlántico.
Waves are made by storms, the low pressure in the Atlantic, and in general the ocean has this force, and these waves, when they get close to the coastline and meet the reef, which is none other than the lava of the volcano deposited on the coast, and that's when the wave is formed, and you can exploit the gifts left by the volcano.
Del potencial que han dejado ahí el legado de los volcanes.
From Famara, the road leaves the plain and begins to rise, twist and turn. The wind is so strong here that the turbines turn constantly. Dramatic clouds sweep from the sea into the valley of Jaria, Jose's hometown. It sits in the shadow of the La Corona volcano. The La Corona eruption 4,000 years ago created the lava field known as Malpaís de la Corona, a desolate landscape that runs down to the northeasterly coast, where the sea is turquoise and deep blue. It also created two of the island's greatest attractions, however, the Cueva de los Verdes and Jameos del Agua. The Jameos del Agua is a stunning collapsed lava tunnel created by the eruption of La Corona volcano. At 6 kilometers in length, it is one of the longest such lava tunnels in the world. This is where César Manrique laid the cornerstone of his creative work, harmony between nature and artistic creation. Here in the Barrel Vault Cathedral, the still water of an internal lake originates from filtration through the rock below sea level. In the silence of the dark cave, a shaft of late afternoon sunlight slices through an opening in the upper part of the vault. It offers a glimpse down into the depth of the lake's limpid waters, revealing hundreds of white specks. They are Lanzarote's mascot, the blind white crab, a rare species that exists only here in this volcanic Shangri-La. In the shallows, volcanic gases escape from the cracks in the cave and bubble rapidly to the surface. Visitors can dine or drink in the nooks and crannies tucked into the black rock and lush greenery at the mouth of the cave, where palms, cactus and fig trees thrive. A serpentine-shaped white pool and ponds await visitors as they step out of the lava tunnel's darkness and into the bright African sun, the rim of the Jameo crowning this unique oasis. Marco is a free diver and explores the island's volcanic underwater caves along the coastline and inland. The dozens of bays and inlets where lava fields extend underwater are perfect for Marco's free diving. The inland caves are more exciting again, and in the northeast of the island, the La Corona volcano has left an amazing labyrinth of tunnels and underground lakes. It is a risky sport.
Free diving es un deporte en apnea, ¿no?
Free diving is a sport where you hold your breath. You are practically exposing your body to what it's not made for, holding your breath, but you are so detached from your environment, although you go deep under the water, so the risks multiply. Be it the lava tunnel or overconfidence, it's easy for you to have a blackout.
Just a few kilometers away from the Jameo del Agua, across the expanse of green and yellow low shrubbery at the foot of La Corona, is the entrance to the mysterious Seven Lakes Tunnel, one of the least explored lava tunnels that beckons to Marco. It is 800 meters long and runs an average of 9 meters underground. It was created when fast-flowing lava cooled on its way to the sea 4,000 years ago, leaving the lava inside boiling hot and liquid. The liquid lava flowed into the sea, leaving a tunnel behind it. Erosion and time have caused the roof to fall in places, and Marco has to climb these obstacles sure-footedly in flip-flops to get to the secret lake he is looking for.
It's really cold, but a unique experience.
The water is freezing, and Marco wears a wetsuit to keep warm. To explore the bottom of the underwater lake, he carries a rock to stay down. He has brought neither weights nor fins. It is a unique experience, free diving a dozen meters underground in a totally silent, still and pure water lake, completely alone. These 7 underwater lakes are connected with the longest lava tunnel on Lanzarote, the Atlantide Tunnel, now closed to protect the unique aquatic fauna living there. Wherever you go in Lanzarote, you are never far from the sea. The shoreline closer to the city bears the scars of modernity. An oil refinery and electric plant compete for space along the beach with the rusting hulk of a merchant ship that broke apart at sea and was towed ashore and left to rot. Today, divers explore its insides. Once, this stretch of beach was salt pans, supplying the island's sardine canning industry, until an international dispute decimated the fishing fleet and eliminated the need for salt to preserve fish for export.
Bueno,
Lanzarote used to have the largest sardine fleet in Europe due to its proximity to the Saharan Canary sandbank when it was in Spanish territorial waters. Since then, we have built a shallow water fleet, a coastal fleet, and an important tuna fishing fleet which goes out to the Sahara Canary sandbank and Madeira, and we believe we should preserve this.
y al menos esto creemos que sí debemos preservarlo.
The port's tuna fishing community is small but still exports fish as far as Japan. However, the decline in the fishing industry in general has depressed the salt industry. Many of the traditional salt pans with their trademark windmills are dilapidated and no longer in use. One pan, though, is still producing, the Janubio salt flats on the other side of the island. Today, the salt is mostly for export or sales to curious tourists who drop in. Here, white piles of salt are still collected from evaporating seawater, brought into the pans by windmill-powered pumps. Workers still toil in the blinding sunlight to build perfect mounds of salt, now for sale as quality cooking salt. Locally caught fish mostly finds its way to restaurants on the island, which are receiving growing interest from a new kind of tourist, attracted by the natural qualities of this volcanic island.
Fine food tourism and wine and food tourism are both important on the island of Lanzarote, and we have been working a lot over the last few years so that the visitor returns home with a rich experience that you can try yourself by visiting the restaurants of the island. We've worked very hard on this over the years.
It seems an idyllic life, but living with the volcano and in an internationally renowned biosphere is not always easy. Between 1730 and 1736, the volcano Montaña de Fuego erupted, devastating hundreds of square kilometers of the island, already dominated by the Spanish and populated by a small community of farmers. The lava flows destroyed several villages and stopped just short of Tinajo to the east and Yaiza to the west. Here you can see exactly where the lava flow stopped, just a few meters from the town of Yaiza. The 300-year-old lunar landscape that surrounds the mountain of fire will continue to be inhospitable to agriculture until the rock is eroded into sand. But the volcanic ash that showered the region offers agriculture a special advantage. Germán López, owner of one of the oldest farmhouses on the island, produces award-winning wines in the volcanic soil here in the Jeria district of Lanzarote in the southwest of the small island. It is the seat of the island's oldest winery, Bodegas Rubicón.
La casa era un cortijo de ganado.
The house was an animal farm, an animal farmhouse in the 16th century, and as of the 1700s, 1770, it was converted.
770 ya esto se convirtió después de venir.
After the volcano erupted, the animals couldn't live in this area anymore because the rock completely covered the pastures, so no grass grew to feed the animals.
Los valles y entonces no salía pasto para comer los ganados.
The farmhouse dates back to the earliest days of settlement on Lanzarote, when farmers here were self-sustaining, raising animals and growing a few crops. Herman is proud of the work he has done to restore the house, which dates to before the eruption and was home to simple farmers.
As I said, I bought the winery in 1979, beginning of 1980, and bought it off friends because the farmhouse was abandoned. It was the farmhouse of the whole Heria district and the only farmhouse in Heria. Before this, there were no other vineyards here. Over the years and with the passing generation, the land was split up and the heirs created other vineyards, and now there are many vineyards. In the 1600s and 1700s, there was just one farm, and it was called the Heria farm, and it was this.
Herman's house represents the unique story of wine growing on Lanzarote. Bodegas Rubicon is the oldest winery on the island, growing its vines in this unique pockmarked landscape. The house dates back to before wine was grown here, before the great eruption, and represents the story of how wine production developed on Lanzarote.
Normally on Lanzarote, and I think at the time it was the same as the plants were already here, 90% of the grapes were Malvasia. 90% of the vineyards are planted with Malvasia. There are two good wines on Lanzarote, in my opinion. They are dry Malvasia and Moscatel.
The lack of wood on the island made conserving the wine complicated. There were no barrels until the island's special relationship with Cuba came to the rescue. The ships from Cuba docked here, in the small port of Quemada, now little more than a fishing village.
Aquí hay una historia muy larga. Cuba.
It's a very long story. Cuba was Spanish, and this island has strong ties to Cuba. This island sent to Cuba cereals, watermelons, melons, onions.
Sandía, melones, cebolla. Regresaban para las Islas Orientales.
And ships brought back to the Eastern Isles wood, because the Eastern Isles didn't have much wood, and the barrels called bokoi. And the bokoi were transported full of rum. So on the islands they drank the rum that was brought back, and they kept the barrels and used them to keep wine.
In fact, the lack of wood on the island led to whole ships being recycled. The beams in the old wine press room still show the marks of their origin.
This is the wood that the ships coming from Cuba brought. They left it here as building material in the 1900s or the end of the 1800s, and it shows the name, Havana.
Today, Bodegas Rubicon produces a number of white wines, all based on the Malvasia grape, dry, semi-dry and sweet, but also an award-winning Muscat of Alexandria, naturally sweet, as well as a red wine. Some spend a few months in oak barrels.
Here we put the white wine in barrels for a short time, a very short time, 20 days, a month. Then we pass it over to a place where we keep it very cold, so it doesn't take that taste, but remains fresh in the mouth.
The 22 hectares the winery owns are not all in the vicinity of the old building, however. Today it has a modern appearance, and the winery produces 10% of the whole of the island's output.
The
problem is that on Lanzarote production can be very high or very low due to nature itself. That's just the way it is. We produce 500,000 bottles. But we're looking for quality, not quantity. We buy grapes from other vineyards. We buy the same grapes from several other producers. We check their vineyards before buying their grapes.
Herman has kept the old house as it was 2 centuries ago. It developed around the courtyard over the centuries and became one of the largest landowners' houses on the island. The ancient house's dining room was simple, and this is where the original family ate the basic foodstuffs the island gave them, including seafood collected on the beaches.
Este creo que era el comedor de la casa, donde se comía.
I think this was the dining room of the house, where the family ate. You can see the shells down there, seashells. Because when this was an animal farmhouse, the owners went to the sea. The shepherd went to the sea with the animals to kill the kid goats, because it was known that the sea, the seashore, was full of seafood. At that time, very few people lived on Lanzarote, and they ate a lot of seafood.
Lanzarote vivía muy poca gente y traía mucho marisco para arriba.
Next door is the kitchen. However, a fundamental space in the building was the cistern, today converted into a meeting room.
Este era el aljibe de la casa. Esto era para la...
This was the water reservoir of the house, for drinking water for the house. The water from the roof fell here through this pipe and into the reservoir. They had a square jug, like this one, and using a rope they lowered it into the water and drew it up to be used.
Se bajaba para abajo y se sacaba el agua para arriba para utilizarla.
40 years after the eruption, the landowners made an exceptional discovery. The volcanic ash was perfect for cultivating plants, as it kept the humidity in the soil. It stopped the little rainwater from evaporating. Agriculture on volcanic soil was possible. On the other side of the lava flow, at Tinajo, Marco Imbernon is determined to prove that organic agriculture can be profitable on Lanzarote, exploiting the specific soil characteristics. It is an uphill struggle, and his plot is not profitable yet. He still has to work as a park warden on the Timanfaya volcano to make a living.
Todo esto está con el agua de lluvia, pues básicamente de octubre. Este año ha sido...
All this grows with rainwater that goes back to October, thanks to the climatic effect of El Niño. The humidity of the soil below is kept in by this isolating blanket, so you can see the earth is humid, the earth is soft. Clearly, thanks to this volcanic ash, you have humidity, and these plants don't need irrigation because they are isolated by the volcanic ash and exploit the humidity.
Aisladas con la ceniza volcánica y disfrutando de la humedad que retiene la ceniza.
All over the island, this volcanic ash retains the small amount of humidity in the air and prevents Lanzarote's little rainfall from evaporating. Agriculture still represents a small proportion of the island's income. Marco's land is part of a wider European Union project to develop environmentally sustainable agriculture, especially in an internationally recognized biosphere. In order to participate in the project, the whole terrain needs to be farmed. Marco farms millet for animal feed, and this magnificent prickly pear cactus.
Esto básicamente es una tuna o una tunera, ¿no?
Basically, this is a prickly pear cactus. As you can see, all the fruit are developing to be ready for the summer. As you can see, they are growing into prickly pears or picone or chumbu, however you want to call it. It's an incredible fruit, a strong plant that lives without rain and produces a juicy fruit for the summer, which is so good when cold.
However, the mainstay of Marco's production are pumpkins that he rigorously pollinates manually by placing the male stamen in the female flower to generate a whole pumpkin.
El antiguo dueño ha casado. Esta está casada.
The old owner has mated these two flowers. They have been mated. This is a female flower in which a male flower has been introduced in order to ensure that pollination is well consolidated. Natural pollination can be due to bees or flies or even the wind. But if you can ensure that the pollination occurs, you will have a pumpkin.
Consolidándose y haciéndose una calabaza.
Marco lives a full life, far from the stress of the modern world, in search of peace and harmony with nature and his life choices. But he still has to come to terms with today's economic realities.
Simplemente disfruto del sosiego.
I take advantage of the calm, tranquility. I don't get involved in discussions. I ask for nothing. It's incredible. I'm sensitive to the things that fill me with joy. It's slightly more spiritual than you'd expect for my age. But yes, I think that living in the first world is depressing.
¿Cuánto cuesta?
How much does it cost? It's variable. In the supermarket, 130, 120, 110, 112. It changes constantly. The wholesaler buys at 45 cents. So clearly, if you produce 1,500 kilos, you earn nothing.
Puedes tener 1.500 kilos de calabaza, que significa nada.
La agricultura en sí.
Agriculture in itself only represents a token percentage. I don't think it goes beyond 5% of the gross domestic product, or maybe less, but nevertheless it has a strategic role in maintaining the configuration of the landscape, which is very important for the policy of the island's government.
Del paisaje, muy importante para las políticas del gobierno insular.
If Marcos struggles to make agriculture profitable near Tinajo, on the other side of the Mountain of Fire, the volcanic plain of Heria is home to the island's most popular produce, wine. Here at the Bodegas Rubicon, the work is laborious and hot, and each plant is tended individually.
Here there is no water. The vine that has water is more resistant to the heat. It has more juice. Here, where it is more dry, the grape has juice, but much less juice, so it takes nearly 2 kilos of grapes to make a bottle of wine. And grapes here cost €2 a kilo. Nearly €2, so that means nearly €4 a bottle. Then we have to bottle the wine and run the shop. And we sell it at a high price, €7, €8.
Like Marco's field of pumpkins, here everything is rigorously done by hand, and that manual labor is costly. Before the days of the internal combustion engine, animals were used to do the hauling. And Lanzarote is close to Africa, so the choice of animal seemed obvious. Lanzarote lies close to the Sahara and hosts a community of Arab camel handlers called camaleros, whose home is in the village of Uga, near the edge of the Timanfaya National Park and the Heria winemaking area. The camel corral is where the camels are fed and groomed. Here their handlers water them and bring them fresh hay. The camel calves are kept in a separate corral, where they can be trained for their future calling, taking tourists of every size and shape on tours through the red sand and volcanic outcroppings of the national park. Every camel carries 2 tourists, and extra weight is added to balance the twin saddles. The animals know their route by heart and plod forward in the blazing sun. While camels transport tourists today, they were the way grapes and wine barrels were hauled around 2 centuries ago.
Once there was just one person with a basket. Now we have crates because we're more modern. When they harvested, they put the basket here and put the grapes into it. The kids put it on their shoulders because the man was over there, and they carried it up and put it into a big box, a special box. I've kept one, to hold the grapes, to load it onto the camels.
The grape harvest has not changed much in the last 200 years. The fruit is still harvested by hand under the scorching sun, and it might take several days to collect the grapes from a single plant.
I've had it said when I first bought the winery, and as far as I know, The harvest in Lanzarote lasted more or less 40, 42, 44 days according to the year, when it was all manual. Today it's still about 40.
The wine is delicate in this extreme climate. The heat, the wind, the poor humidity make for quality wines, but with a low yield at a high price.
The most delicate moment of them all is the last period. The sun is hot, but it isn't the sun that's the problem. Hot air comes from Africa, and this hot wind destroys the grapes. So it's the last period of growth. If the grapes dry out, then there's nothing left. There's nothing to harvest.
The island of 100 volcanoes, Lanzarote, is home to rare wines that made their way here more than 200 years ago, in the wake of a natural calamity that left the landscape blackened and scarred, yet amazingly resilient.
The landscape of the area where the wine is grown is unique in the world, exploiting the volcanic ash to avoid evaporation.
Evitar la evaporación, la viticultura.
The viticulture that was always important, even Shakespeare mentioned it, in the heat of the island of Lanzarote, occupies the greatest extension of cultivated land on the island.
De la superficie cultivada de la isla.
The astounding fertility of the land, despite its black appearance, is shown by the way the landowners propagate the vines. The remarkable black volcanic ash is in fact propitious to vine growth. These holes with dry stone windbreaks are typical of the region.
The Malvasia plant is very delicate, a small plant. It's very happy here though. As big as it is, the plants that are here are very suited to this place. That's why there is this wall, because the plants like to keep close to the ground. The others prefer to keep high. It grows up here, but it keeps low.
This vine produces in the area of 40 kilos of grapes, and here it takes 2 kilos of grapes to make a bottle. The older the plant, the more productive.
All this here, this plant may be 200 or 300 years old, going back to when the first plantation was here. That's 300 years ago. A plant like this in an average year could produce 40 kilos and more. I have plants further over there that are also Malvasia like this, and they produce 100 kilos.
As the bottles are opened and tested one by one, the pride of the winery's production comes at the end of the tasting. The Moscatel dessert wine, made with grapes of Muscat of Alexandria, has won awards in Belgium and France, as well as being recommended by the world's leading wine magazines. Despite all this success, Herman has a secret to confess.
My family are bread makers. We have a bread factory in Arrecife, the capital, and so I had another business. So at first, I bought this business as a hobby. At first it was a hobby, and then it became a business.
Herman's wines are successful in Spain, America, and as far away as Japan. And like Lanzarote, attract an ever more demanding clientele. Visitors from afar, who, like Marco and Jose, are energized by the rejuvenating power of sea, wind and fire of the island of 100 volcanoes.